Joe Biden's not-so-excellent adventure. This week, the U.S. president decided to insert himself into the rapidly escalating conflict in the Middle East, which, let's not forget, started with Hamas terrorists streaming out of the unoccupied Gaza Strip. That's right, Israel unoccupied it in 2005 to wreak death and destruction across southern Israel. Now, we're nowhere near an endgame with this crisis, but so far we have seen, and again, I've got to say, some viewers might find this content distressing, the following events. First, we've seen Israel hit back somewhat against Gaza ahead of what is expected to be a full-scale invasion. We've also seen Hamas lie that the Israelis blew up one of their hospitals to garner sympathy in the world media. And we've also seen demonstrations around the world, firebombs thrown at American embassies in the Middle East. Plus, of course, now, the potential for further terrorist attacks abroad and even a proper regional hot war in the region that could draw the U.S. and Russia into conflict. Great stuff all around. And this is who the U.S. puts into the mix?
Years ago, I asked the Secretary of State when he and I were working in the Senate to write something for me, and he said, he wrote a line that I think is appropriate. He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it, I'll wait later.
Anyway, while in the Middle East, Joe Biden met with Benjamin Netanyahu. The other local leaders all kiboshed a summit that was supposed to have taken place in neighboring Jordan. And he had this to say about that explosion in what appears now to have been a hospital car park in Gaza that was caused by a Palestinian missile gone astray.
Based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
The other team? Look, I know the president likes to play that he's Al Bundy, reminiscing about scoring the winning touchdown for Polk High, but he couldn't even say the words? Palestinian Islamic Jihad? The guys who actually shot the missile? At the same time, while there are believed to be 203 hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza, around 30 of them American citizens, Biden also did this. He offered Gaza $100 million to Hamas in unconditional foreign aid. Again, unconditionally, without any requirement that Hamas hand back anyone, not even the Americans. This is a guy who just traded $6 billion for 5 Americans in Iran, but what are you going to do? It's insane and it's disgraceful, because it seems Biden really is trying to do the whole both sides thing here. He has a long history of this too, remember? Back in 2001, long before he started sundowning, but just after 9/11, Biden was the head of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. Powerful committee. And according to this profile in the very liberal New Republic magazine published just weeks afterwards, here's an account of what went down in a meeting with staffers, according to the story. Biden said, quote, "Seems to me this would be a good time to send, no strings attached, a check for $200 million to Iran," Biden declared. Biden surveyed the table with raised eyebrows. How do you like that look on his face? Well, that's from the New Republic, and this, friends, is who we're dealing with. And just as the money he released to Iran through the lifting of sanctions and other means has gone to fund terrorism, it's a pretty clear bet that the $100 million in aid he has promised to Hamas in Gaza will be used to torture hostages and kill Jews and enrich the corrupt Palestinian leadership. Even CNN was skeptical. Check out this interview with Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner.
Is the U.S. then essentially in a position where it has to take the word of Hamas that it will not be taken? I mean, what other guarantee can there be?
We believe there is an understanding now among all of the players who control that crossing, the Rafah crossing in Egypt.
An understanding. Lovely. With Hamas, a gang of terrorist butchers. This gross, casual moral obtuseness is precisely why I think the Biden administration has helped contribute to so much of the chaos we presently see in the world. It can be explained, I think, by one of the great fallacies of American foreign policy that has infected it since at least World War II. Story time. Back when I was at university, one of my international relations professors summed it up this way. He said, 90% of the world's problems could be traced back to Americans just wanting to be liked. A simple saying, but if you think about it, it makes sense. Because that idea, that desire to be liked, all too often runs up in the world against systems and societies and cultures where the key is not being liked, but being respected, being feared even. Osama bin Laden, the al-Qaeda chief who killed 3,000 Americans on 9/11 and baited the U.S. into horribly destructive forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, had a saying. And I'm not quoting him because I approve of him, just the opposite. May he burn in hell. But Osama bin Laden was famous for his knowledge of power politics and how the game worked in the Middle East. According to bin Laden, this could be summed up with the phrase, when people see a strong horse and a weak horse, they will like the strong horse. In other words, if you're too eager to please, well, you're the weak horse. If you're outsourcing, as the Obama and really the Biden administration as well, the job of security in the Middle East to Iran, a country which calls you the great Satan, again, you're the weak horse. If you're standing in the way of your purported allies doing what they need to do to eliminate their enemies who just slaughtered 1,400 of their civilians, you're the weak horse. Do I have to spell it out anymore? Under Joe Biden, in a continuation of the disastrous foreign policy of Barack Obama that was only briefly interrupted by Donald Trump, Israel is ultimately to be thrown over. Despite being a democracy in a part of the world where democracies are few and far between. And they're going to be thrown over in favor of Iran, which in 2014 Barack Obama said was run by strategic, rational people, he said, who respond to costs and benefits and incentives from the West. Well, I guess in a sense, he got that right. Now, Obama's successor, proxy even, Joe Biden, is having to cope with the utter, horrific, world-shaking catastrophe of Hamas invading Israel from her south via Gaza, massacring, again, more than 1,000, taking 203 more captive with funding that came directly from Iran. This one major reason why Biden's trip to the Middle East will ultimately not bear fruit, in the short run or the long run. His administration is compromised, it is stuck with a policy that regards Iran as legitimate, and Israel as a bit, Biden has allowed America to become the weak horse, and Iran the strong horse. Not that, of course, Iran or any of America's enemies in the Middle East had to consider Biden's weakness for very long.
I spoke to him. I learned a long time ago what you've all learned in your life. When someone's going through something that is beyond their comprehension, they've ever thought they'd have to go through.
Beyond your comprehension, all right. What I wouldn't give for a strong horse right now.